Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Bob Jack. We'll be discussing his fantastic book, Increasing Firm Competitive Advantage Through the Use of Employee Stock Ownership Plan. Available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or if you guys want to get everything that Bob has to offer, do yourself a favor. Go to Amazon and Barnes & Noble, of course, to purchase the book, but go directly to his personal website to gather much more information. That's bobjackbooks.com. There, not only will you be able to find this particular title, you'll be able to find more information on Bob. You'll be able to find other titles in which he's written. You'll also be able to find informative videos that Bob has listed on the website as well. So one more time, that's bobjackbooks.com. And I will say, Bob was brought to our network, People of Distinction, by some of the best movers in the business, Workbook Press Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, move it through Workbook Press. You can find them at workbookpress.com. And guys, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Bob here on the line because, hey, he's a returning client, okay? We've had him on the line here before. I'm sure you guys remember when we discussed his other book, but the interview went so well, we had to invite Bob back on because it was just that informative. We had such a great time, and this is going to be a different subject matter, but just as beneficial and really just as informative. So we're truly, truly looking forward to this. And listen, we have so much information to cover. I'm just going to jump right in because we know Bob has done the research. He is just a wealth of knowledge. So the education that we're going to be receiving today is second to none. So without further ado, first and foremost, Bob, thank you once again for returning and being a guest with us on People of Distinction. How are you?
Hi, Benji. Good to be here.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we're very much looking forward to this. We're glad to have you back on. Now, Bob, for our listening audience that wasn't able to hear the previous interview, let's start with a little bit more background information on yourself.
Okay, Benji. I was born and raised in California in the area around the San Gabriel Valley near Pasadena. Up in the foothills, Sierra Madre, Glendora, in that area. I went to, got my degree in economics, a BA degree from Cal State University at Los Angeles. Then I went on to get an MBA in strategic management from Azusa Pacific University, and then out to the Drucker School at Claremont Graduate University for a degree and Master of Science degree in advanced management. And then I went to work for a series of companies, mainly a corporate guy, Benji. I went to work for Aerojet General Corporation, which is an aerospace company. I was a contracts person there, specialist. I then went to work for Chevron Corporation, where I was manager of the Land and Legal Division Administration Department. And then I went to work for Scripps Institution of Oceanography, where I was director of contracts on a major National Science Foundation project called the Deep Sea Drilling Project. Then on to General Atomic Company, which was also in San Diego, and I was manager of contracts for them, and then finished up my career of 24 years until the year 2000 at Parsons Corporation in Pasadena, California. And that kind of summarizes my career and my education.
Fantastic. You know, listen, Bob, I remember you going through your resume on the first interview. And listen, it's just as impressive to hear it a second time. That's fantastic. Such an eclectic background. Benji. Very impressive. Absolutely. You know, Bob, you clearly know your stuff. So let's jump right in. Employee Stock Ownership Plan. Okay, the acronym is ESOP. Talk to our listening audience. How did ESOP get started?
Well, Benji, ESOP, the first concept that we have of it gets back into the Industrial Revolution. A German economist and also an agricultural specialist by the name of von Thunen came up with the first ESOP plan, we think. And he had equipment that he used in his agricultural work, and he would take a certain fraction of the profits generated from that equipment, and he would invest it in the accounts of the employees that worked for him as a retirement benefit. And then he would invest those funds and get interest income and kind of distribute it as a second income to the employees. and that was that kind of encapsulates what ESOP is all about. It's worker capitalism, basically. And so then we skip forward to 1974, and a fellow by the name of Kelso, who was an investment banker from San Francisco, he was the inventor of ESOPs in this country. And he put together a plan and took it back to Washington, D.C., and he visited with Senator Russell Long of Louisiana. Long saw this, and he said he was excited about it, and he said, this is what we really need, is a way to spread the pie and get the money around to the employees. So he was instrumental in getting this on the tax code in ERISA as something that is important and companies should adhere to. Now, just one last thing. Today, or is in 2018, there were 6,500 ESOPs in the country, covering 14 million employees.
Wow.
Now, in recent years, the number of ESOPs has slightly declined, but the number of employees who are in ESOPs has increased. So it's a strategic device that's out there for people to use.
Now, for clarification for myself, as I'm sure many of our listening audience as well, what is ESOP?
ESOP it stands for Employee Stock Ownership Plan, and it is a defined contribution retirement plan, simple and straight. It's in the ERISA tax code, and it has significant financial and tax benefits to both employees and the companies that utilize it.
Bob, let's go into inspiration. Of course, we know that's going to be a multi-part question. So the first part of it, what inspired you to write this particular narrative?
Well, go back to 1993. I was taking a graduate course and an MBA course at Azusa Pacific University. I had to come up with a capstone project for my MBA. And I thought I was working at a company named Parsons Corporation in that period of time. And they had gone through an ESOP restructuring in 1984 and took the company completely private through an ESOP trust, where they bought the stock that was on the open market on the New York Stock Exchange, and about 70% of the stock. Another 30% was in a pre-existing ESOP, and they went 100% ESOP and did a lot of good for themselves. So I thought I could do two things: get a capstone project written and also advertise ESOPs and their benefits.
And a great segue that you've established for us. Following off of that last statement that you made, what did you see? I mean, why did you feel that this was a book that needed to be written so the public would be able to partake in it as well?
Well, I wanted people to see that ESOP was more than just a retirement benefit. I wanted to make the point that it is a strategic device that corporations can be used for a number of reasons. For example, a 100% ESOP company does not have to advertise its quarterly earnings, and it can plan for the long term. Number two, it's anti-hostile takeover defense time with a 100% ESOP-owned company. Parsons, the company I was working for, was a 100% ESOP-owned company, and it had some strategic issues that it needed to resolve. It had been a 30% ESOP-owned company, and it went on the open market and made a bid for a tender offer for the 70% shares on the open market, and then it bought the 30% with a new ESOP and ended up with a new ESOP for 100% of the company. And in doing so, it really positioned itself in a very nice way in the marketplace.
Guys, again, here in the line with Bob Jack, we're discussing his book, Increasing Firm Competitive Advantage Through the Use of Employee Stock Ownership Plan. Available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or directly through his personal website, bobjackbooks.com. Now, Bob, listen, the information that we're receiving is fantastic. Now, for any of our listening audience members out there that either are CEOs or in their own corporations, or, maybe somebody that, as you said, it's not only, utilized for retirement plans, but it can, of course, be used that way. Any tips that you can offer our listening audience? And I know your book is filled with them, so we don't want to go into too many of them because, of course, guys, there's only one way to get all the information. And I've stated it already. You got to go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or bobjackbooks.com to get everything. But since we have you here on the line, Bob, any particular tips that you'd be able to relay to our listening audience?
Well, yeah. First of all, I'd like to recommend that you get the book because it does cover ESOPs in detail. The strategic analysis is in there. For example, a classic SWOT analysis, SWOT for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You get a complete assessment, a strategic assessment of the company and how that's done. That's one tip in analyzing the company, evaluating the company to see whether or not an ESOP is in fact the answer for this company. And in the book, it really points this out. It shows you the way. And that's one tip. Another tip is if you're in an ESOP company and you're in senior management, you want to make absolutely sure that employees view the distribution at retirement, even though it's a cost to the company, that it is in fact a reward for performance and commitment, not that it's a financial drain on the company. That's a very important principle that I feel needs to be addressed by senior managements in these ESOP companies, Benji.
Absolutely. You know, Bob, listen, you are offering a plethora of knowledge, which we are just so grateful to have received. Now, question that I'd love to ask, what type of research did you do in preparation for this book? 'Cause I'm sure there was so much.
There was a lot of research that went into it. A lot of it was done online. A lot of it was done based on personal experience and being involved in an ESOP-owned company for 24 years. That was my primary research. I did a lot of investigating in ESOP material that was available online through the ESOP consulting companies that make it available. So I had a wealth of information to go on, including my own personal experience and observations and participation in an ESOP company.
Now, Bob, curiosity for myself, what would you say was a highlight for you in writing this book? Or if not a highlight, maybe something that surprised you that you weren't expecting prior to embarking upon the journey?
Well, in reading through the book today, going back and looking at it, one of the highlights to me, one of the things that I really get from the book myself when I read it again is what a wonderful strategic device this is for a corporation to provide the workers with a great benefit and a motivating tool that aligns company performance goals with employee commitment. It's a wonderful way to do that, and I think that was an exciting thing that as time went on and I thought about it more and more, this has to be something that people really consider in their companies, even if they're owned by themselves and want to have an exit strategy. It's a great exit strategy for getting a business sold if you're the owner.
You know, and last question, as we start to tie up this fantastic book, Bob, and listen, I know you have already started to go into it, so let's just re-impress it and solidify it one more time. What are you hoping to see people do or take from this book?
I hope people will, if they're in a corporation and are in management, senior management, or an employee, that they will read this book and will come to grips with the fact that this is a very important, valuable, strategic device to use in a corporation. And the other thing to realize is that in a time when retirement income is becoming more and more important as our age increases, our age in life, is that this is a great way to get more money into the hands of people for retirement. I mean, the retirement distribution benefits can be substantial with an ESOP at retirement time. It can go anywhere from, $500,000 to 600 to 700,000, all the way up into several millions of dollars, depending on somebody's term of service, how long they've been there, and their income. The way ESOP is, the stock is allocated to employee accounts It's a ratio between the employee's salary and the total wage income of the company. So the more you make, the more you get. But it is a way to distribute this to a lot of people, including secretaries and senior managers and midline managers and everybody. And I think it's a social benefit, frankly.
Guys, listen, if you weren't impressed enough with that description, that's not all. Okay. As we said, first and foremost, Bob is a returning author to our network. So he's written multiple books. I mean, he has a lot in his wheelhouse, okay? We just discussed one today. But when you go to bobjackbooks.com, you're going to find 2 other titles that are listed on the website. And then he has an additional 2 titles after that, not on the website yet, but are available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. So when you go to the website, bobjackbooks.com, you're going to find Discovering Your Boundaries, Living Within Yourself. Of course, you're going to find the ESOP book that we just finished discussing, and you'll find A View from the Eagle's Nest. Now, those, again, are available at bobjackbooks.com. But when you go to his Amazon and Barnes & Noble pages, you'll be able to find those 3 titles in addition to Problems and Solutions for Contract Administration for Architect Engineer Projects. And then lastly, A Life in Darkness, The Drug Addicted Child. Now, listen, Bob, we do have some time left on the interview. I'd love to go into a brief description of one of them. Of course, we won't have time to go into all of them, but any of your other titles that you would be able to articulate for our listening audience, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, first of all, I'll just assume that some of our people have gotten into A View from the Eagle's Nest, which is a review of the assessment policies on the Obama administration. But the book, first book I wrote, title was The Life in Darkness, The Drug Addicted Child, is a book very close to my heart because it deals with my youngest son and the struggles of going through that as a family and as a member of the family, and trying to bring some semblance of resolution to a very, very deep problem. And then because I lost my son, I deal in the second part of the book with how to overcome or how to heal from the death of a child. So I think those, that's one of my favorite books, frankly.
Absolutely. And, Bob, again, very sorry for the passing of your son. But a book of that magnitude is really something that I'm sure so many people can relate to. Drug addiction and the mental illness that it carries is something that plagues a lot of families and a lot of people, not only just here in the States, but in our human family globally. And to be able to not only hold the mirror up for yourself, but really hold that window up for everyone else to peer through and learn from your experience, I think is something that is so commendable and admirable and really such an education as so many of your other books are. Guys, listen, you know what you got to do. Nothing more can be said. Okay, I know you're already at bobjackbooks.com. I know you're at his Amazon page and his Barnes & Noble page. But just in case, I'm going to say it one more time just to re-impress it. We just finished discussing his fantastic book, Increasing Firm Competitive Advantage Through Use of Employee Stock Ownership Plan. Available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or bobjackbooks.com. Listen, you surely will not be disappointed. That is such a wealth of knowledge that you can take, or listen, again, any of his other books. You really have something for everyone. Bob, it has been an absolute pleasure, again, having you on as a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you, Benji. It's been great to be here with you again.